So, I kind of hate this bike. I mean, there's a lot of things that I like about it, but it's my first DIY e-bike, and I feel like there's a lot of things I could have done better. So I want to share what I feel like I could have done better and maybe teach a couple people what to look out for on their e-bike build. The number one thing I really messed up with this is I fucked up the battery. I built the battery myself, and I wasn't thinking about where it would fit in the frame. I just thought that if I make it and it would be kind of small, it would definitely fit right here in the middle. And it ended up being too big to fit in the middle, so then I mounted it up here on top of the tube right here, and I didn't like that position because it was like between my legs. So then I decided I'll put it back here, so I bought this rack. I made this little bracket so it'll not shift around too much, and then basically I just put it back there. But what happens then is that when I get on the bike, I can't swing my leg over the back anymore, and this isn't a step-through frame, so stepping in that way is quite uncomfortable. Not just that, but the center of gravity is now much higher because that battery is pretty heavy, and it's all the way up here near where I am, versus if it was in the middle of the frame, down low, it would be a lot more manageable and less scary when you're like steering. So I guess point number one is when you're using a frame and a battery, think about where the battery is going to go into the frame. And if that frame will not fit a battery like this, which has a super tiny triangle, either choose a different frame or choose a different battery, because you're not going to make it work. I know you could still mount it up here. I personally don't like it. If you can get past it and you mount it here, then it's up to you. Next thing that really bothers me is these torque arms. I put 2 torque arms on each side, and as you can see now, they're rusting because they're very cheap, low quality torque arms. So another thing I wish I had done is I wish I had just invested in better, more expensive torque arms from like Grin. Those I would rely on 100% because I know they're tried and tested, and they would definitely not rust like these do. So here's the battery. It's really this thing down here. I thought it was going to fit in the middle of the frame, and it ended up not fitting. So I used one of those battery bags with all of the latches and the buckles on them, and it wouldn't fit in the middle, but it would fit on top of the frame. So that worked, but I just didn't like it. So that's why I ended up putting it in this case here. And I'll show you how I mount it to the bike. And something very important for me is that I can remove the battery from the bike, so that I could take the battery inside my house and then leave the bike outside, because I just don't have the space for the whole bike inside my house. So now it's very solid. After that, another thing which I regret not using is anti-spark connectors, which is why I made this jumper that'll do some anti-spark stuff. So that goes right there. And I mean, it's basically ready to ride. I recently removed this bag, and there were some metal zip ties around it, so I'm gonna put those back so this is more secure. Because as it is right now with just the Velcro straps, I don't think it's secure enough. Finally, the last thing that really annoys me about this is that it seems to have some kind of issue where if you give it too much throttle at the start, it just cuts power and it makes like a thunk noise, like that's it. It just gets stuck, and then the only way to get it to reset is to turn this off, turn it back on. So as long as you just like slowly ramp up the throttle, it's okay, but it's just when you give it a lot at once, it cuts power. I cannot figure out why for the life of me. I believe it's not the battery, because the battery isn't cutting out. I verified that. I think it's the speed controller. It's either a low voltage cutoff or a too much current cut off, and I think the speed controller is misreading how much current is being drawn, and that's what's causing the system to fail. I can't confirm it though. The only thing I want to test is the Hall effect sensors inside the motor. And to do that, I have this device, which I got on AliExpress, and it can test phase wires. As you can see, 2 of them are activated right now. And as I push the bike, we could watch this change. Yes. It seems to be normal. So I really don't think that the Hall sensors are the problem. And this kit has had the issue since I bought it. I mean, logically, since the kit came brand new, the only thing that I added was a battery, so it should be the battery that's causing the issue, but I just can't find anything wrong with my battery that could be causing that. Unless I didn't solder something or weld something properly, and that's creating too much internal resistance in the battery and dropping the voltage too much, causing a low voltage cutoff. That's it, but I just couldn't find out what would potentially cause that high resistance within the battery, so I'm kind of lost. If anybody knows, please tell me. But anyway, besides that issue, the bike is a lot of fun. And you know, with all this weight on the back wheel, and the wheel doesn't even have any type of suspension, I'm very scared about what happens when I go over bumps and all that weight just comes crashing down on the back wheel and the spokes and everything. I don't know what's happening. And the tires aren't warm yet, so I don't want to take turns too tight. And the high center of balance makes it so that if I do take a turn too tight and my tires are cold, the chance of the bottom falling out under me is high. The main thing I would have changed about this build is using a frame with a wider base. I think that longer frames just tend to work better for e-bikes. And if you're going to go into a DIY e-bike build, try to use a bike with a long frame. I'm actually going to be taking all the e-bike components from this bike and putting it on a different frame, one that was actually made for an e-bike pretty soon. It'll look a lot better after I'm done with it. Still though, despite my mistakes, it's been a lot of fun riding this e-bike, and it got me into making e-bikes. The only way to get good at something is to make mistakes, and I'm just trying to share the mistakes that I've made so that you know what to avoid. Let me know if this video helped you out at all. Subscribe if you want to see more DIY e-bike content, and thank you for watching.